What's up, everybody? It's your girl Erica from the Classy Climb blog, coming in with a very special guest and a very special topic. This topic is essentially the future for men in blue collar work, child support, marriage, and productivity with Man of Tomorrow. If you guys do not know, this channel, this video is sponsored by the Big Real Estate Life channel, which is actually the Classy Climbers, classyclimbers.com. You guys can grab an array of courses off there. A lot of things are raised to $2,000. Why? Because we're dealing with serious folks who want serious help. We do still have the tax lien course for 197. Why? Because tax liens are some of the fastest way to grow your wealth, grow your income, and get land, especially in Alabama. You can pick it up right away. If it's vacant and empty, it's yours.
Yes, indeed.
And that's how crazy it is. And so I try to share these. We've had multiple students in Macon, Georgia, buy a bunch of land, turn around and sell it to developers for 30K, and they bought it for 2,000. So it's choice is yours. You can figure out a million ways to make money. But that is the Classy Climbs, classyclimb.com website. So I'm super thrilled to have him here because some of the phrases I've been using on the channel, I will give the credit to Man of Tomorrow. That's where I got them from. And I have been laughing my butt off because he has a very serious message. Now, before I show that message, I got to play this clip for a second because it's been cracking me up, and I love it. But Man of Tomorrow was one of the original people who were in the Manosphere 1.0. He was in the Sunday Rumbles. They're historic videos that all got taken down off the internet uh, for various reasons. But at the end of the day, it's super hilarious and super helpful when you keep hitting people with logic when people want to hit you with emotion. And I see that every day on Instagram and I just go, we need more people that are just going to cut the crap. And so I'm going to play this clip of Man of Tomorrow before he comes on, just because I think it's absolutely hilarious. And it just is a testament. Okay, and also watch your ears. There will be a little bit of cussing. I know y'all be like, "Oh, you didn't tell me about the cussing," but that's what's gonna happen. We have a guest that cusses, so relax. Here you guys go.
Want to be self accountable. They don't want to be accountable for the shit. This is why I don't listen to child support dudes. I don't listen to child support dudes at all. It's either you have a date with the court to get custody of your fucking kids, or you do not. That's it. There's nothing else to complain about. It's either you're doing the investigative work in order to get access to your fucking kids that you don't need to tell us about, or you're not. You see, when you ask specific questions about action, people don't have answers because they never took the conversation that far. They never took the conversation toward the action piece. Because the moment you start taking action on this magical ass thinking of yours, that's when reality starts to hit you in the face.
I absolutely have been laughing and cracking up from this clip. I am a woman who came on the Manosphere and told people I have multiple male cousins, military, single, not married, getting full custody of their children. Could barely had time to see them. Military's got them running all over the world. We're able to show the judge, I have housing, I have money. What's up? She's barely almost homeless. Judge is like, you know what? Here you go. And people are like, oh, you're making it up. You're full of crap. No way. And I'm just glad people are now starting to see the tide has been turning for years. If you really do go to court and you challenge it and say, look, this person just isn't fit. She isn't fit. Look at me. I have all the financials. Judges are basically going old school equity, old school who has a home, and they're starting to turn the tide. So that's why I love that clip. I used to get cussed out all the time over in the Manosphere for that saying that. But Man of Tomorrow, please introduce yourself to the audience.
All right, thanks for having me on, Erica. Big, huge fan of the channel. I've been in the Manosphere since the 2015 as a commenter, and then as a donator to most of the channels here. And then I came out with my own channel in 2017. The reason why I came out with my actual channel in 2017 because most people didn't know what I did until I actually did that interview with O'Shea. Until I told people what I did, and then I was like, "Oh, there's no way you can make that kind of money." I'm like, "Yes, way you can make that kind of money." And once you just talk confidently from the standpoint of, "Well, where you want to see numbers?" I mean, this stuff really isn't that hard. So at the end of the day, it's just that I'm more of a results driven type of person. And it's hard for emotional people to actually argue with a person who has results and people know what the results are. And I really don't play games with men online because I don't play games with men in my real life or people who just are not unworthwhile to be around. I don't have a problem working with women. Why? I work with women all the time. And most times when you actually need something from a nonprofit organization or anywhere else, guess we got the connections, the wives of mayors and attorneys and all this kind of other stuff. So it's like if you move away from the unproductive people and still participate in the actual process itself, you're going to get results. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like, look, you have to know that most of these people in my family disengaged from my family in the 1980s. Now these people have extremely got their stuff together because they actually have separated, and now they're just coming back and just buying up everything and just like, what are you going to do about it? You don't have the economics to compete and moving these people out of there that don't deserve to be there. So that's what I'm on. Just trying to get people to actually see the fact that you are supposed to make the most amount of difference in your time. All my patriarchs left me in high school. So I had to be able to pick up the ball myself, get around better people, and have a better outcome. And that was on me to do, not the government, not anyone else. So thanks for having me on.
For sure. And so, one of the big components of why I remember him so strongly and interact with him to this day, text him literally the other day, is we would be on a panel and one guy would be an Uber driver, one guy was unemployed, one guy is doing part time work at Home Depot, one guy's going to school, one guy's being a fashion consultant, and here he is with legit income, legit money, legit work, and people are all like, and then they realized they couldn't attack him on that because he was actually productive. That's literally the most important part, is him being productive. Quick shout out already in the chat. They're saying my cousin has full custody from his 3 kids from his ex-wife. It does happen, exactly, you guys. It happens often. So you guys, man tomorrow, I'm just gonna let them know you are originally from out of Mississippi, right? Mississippi has
Yes, rural
uh
Mississippi.
poverty issues. It just does, right? And unfortunately, they had Deion Sanders down there in Jackson, and it was like, this is a breath of fresh air. Great, attention's going on down there. Then all of a sudden, as he's getting ready to leave out the door, you guys have water issues. What are some of the things, after seeing a lot of the back and forth, people stealing from him, people robbing, the school not managing funds, a lot of other issues, dysfunctional issues? What are some things that you see for the future of Mississippi, if you have any thoughts?
Oh no, the future of Mississippi is going to be a hub for actual people who actually want cheap land, actually want a house with the acres around it. You've already seen it from the actual Memphis area all the way to the Delta to where I'm at. It's a 158-mile stretch of nothing on both sides. We've been buying up farms along that for years. We just haven't done anything with the farms because we want everything before we actually turn around and do something with it. Because people don't have any originality and they see new things going up and they'll just do what you're doing. But they can't really do that if you're just buying the land and not doing anything with it. So what you have to understand is that on this actual land and property, like you can get commercial land in Mississippi for extremely cheap and farmland for extremely cheap. And most people don't even know this. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to just move into these small towns. You go make a deal with the county assessor, and you can buy up half of these small towns for a little less than 10 or 15,000, or maybe even $30,000. So the people who have actually left the state are actually coming back to the state. Like most of my family, when they actually left the state, they went to St. Louis, Chicago, and Milwaukee.
Right.
Now they're moving right back in there. They own all the real estate on the block, and nobody even knows it.
Do you know one of the craziest stats about Mississippi? And for the record, our family owns land right beside the Choctaw reservation.
Yes.
You guys already know my history. Our family, we're in Alabama, but we actually own slaves. We're Native American. And after the Civil War, one of her slaves saved her life and ended up being her husband in her late life. So anyway, that's a whole nother crazy story. It's on the census records. It's everywhere. It's crazy. But the Mississippi right now, the greatest stat that I've ever read is like over 54. Is it 54%? I think it's 54% of people who own land in Mississippi are not even there.
Correct.
They're inherited it. And so most of the inherited people are where? Chicago, Memphis, everywhere but Mississippi. And so they're basically, their government is saying, how can we convince people to come home? How can we convince educated folks to come here and invest in the city because they already own the land? So it's a huge there's a future where people are going to start coming back to that place. I don't know how and where and when, but they will because they own so much of the land there. They just don't live there.
And they're also behind on those taxes as well. So while they
Yeah.
own the land, you can just walk in there, make a deal with the county assessor, no longer their land. I do it every year. Every year. That's why I go there for
Mhm.
Mother's Day. Visit my mother's grave. Shout out to her.
Mhm.
Rest in peace. Amazing woman. And I go there for Jackson State homecoming. I come there. We load up the
Mhm.
actual buses and vans, and while these people are out of town, I'm going to the county assessor's office and checking out the city and buying up all their land that they're behind the taxes on. I do it every year.
That's on my side. Sorry. Say it again, man. Tomorrow. That was on my side. Sorry.
What I do is I go back down there and buy up all the land that is
Mhm.
available, whatever is available. Doesn't matter
Mhm.
how big, no matter how small, no matter how close to the levee it is, doesn't matter. Just go buy it up, do nothing with it. Because a lot of people don't even understand the land buying process and how easy it is to actually buy the land. Like we're talking
Mhm.
about people who receive $5,500, $6,500 in earned income tax credit every year. They
Mhm.
blow it on cars and all this kind of other stuff when you could be buying the land around you.
Yeah. Or even more. Remember they had the farm retribution. They were trying to get repay back black farmers,
Yes.
and people were going down there and they were getting 50,000, $100,000, and instead of going, hey, let's all come back and buy mom and dad's land, they were buying Cadillacs. It was a running joke that like, look at all the black people buying Cadillacs, and I was like, you guys, like this is just a small smidget of what would happen on a greater scale. But long story short, that was absolutely crazy what I saw.
I mean,
Um,
could you imagine if a Michael Jordan decided, like, all my money's going to Mississippi? Every single slot of land that is there, I'm going to buy all of it. And I'm just going to turn this stuff into high income housing and actual remote places for people to remote work. I'm going to make Mississippi the remote capital of work in the United States. Could you imagine
it would
around
be
these
insane.
universities? Yeah, it would be.
Well,
Yep.
well, even if you look at it, there's a young lady that graduated from Jackson State University. She had so much money, she bought like a whole town center plaza and wanted to convert it into a bunch of like remote workplaces and get some IT companies down there. And they were kind of pushing back on her. I was like, are y'all kidding me? Like this is what you need. This is exactly what you need. So, unfortunately, with their water situation and their government, but what I have on the screen here, man, tomorrow is black home ownership from Bush,
Yes.
Obama to Trump. As you can see, the numbers and the numbers went down on Obama. But here's my commentary on that: is I feel like Obama got in there. We were like, oh, everybody relax.
But it was
But
also after the actual 2008 2009 recession. Like the actual
mm,
people who kept their homes did not have adjustable rate mortgages.
mm-hmm,
Those are the people who kept their actual
yeah,
homes because
mm-hmm,
you had these citywide home loans that was popping up on every single corner in
mm-hmm.
Colorado. Like it didn't matter how big the actual shopping center was. There was a citywide home loan that you can actually walk to anywhere within Colorado. That's where I live now. And people don't understand that whites got caught up in this too. Latinos got caught up in this too. If you got an adjustable rate mortgage rather than a 5 or 6% actual mortgage that you could have refinanced as soon as the crash happened, you lost your house nearly 100% of the time.
For sure, for sure. Um, and ownership is something that if you if you notice in some of these circles, no one wants to talk about it. Oh, Erica, be quiet. Hush. Stop talking about home ownership. It's a trap. Grant Cardone said never own your house. And I go, just being honest, if you see the wealth that's changed for Latino Americans, it's all mostly through businesses and home ownership. Right. And then now we're complaining that, housing, housing, housing. They're making it too expensive and gentrification. But these are the same people who, when you talk to them about home ownership, oh, they don't want us owning homes. And I go, are you pre-approved? Did you get pre-approved? The last 5 years, it's like crickets. From what you see out in California, Colorado, the Latino community in home ownership, just your views. Definitely share with us.
Exploded. I went to Colorado in 1998 to 1999. I went from Germany, Ramstein Air Force Base. I was stationed in Colorado. I went there for like a month or two. Took a special assignment out to Korea. So I was technically stationed in Korea, but I was still kind of based in Colorado because that's what I wanted to be afterwards. And what these people did within 20 years, I'm talking about 98, 99 to like 2018. These people went from working on base, scooping bad military food on plates, to actually having government contracts, to the actually doing the actual things on base, to having everything done by the government with their actual labor. I know because I remember escorting people to actually build the actual satellites on Ramstein. I'm sorry, Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado. Right? Those individuals went from just doing anything to really raising productive kids. They didn't have any more kids that they could actually afford, and they actually turned around and they actually did a lot with that money, which is buy real estate.
Yeah, super smart. And I'm gonna show some stats to back that up, you guys, because I know people are like, well, where's the stats? You know, that's the favorite thing on the over there. Some of those channels is like, where are you getting these stats from? I was like, yeah, this is straight from CDC. This is straight government numbers. Some of the top 10 and the bottom 10 for home ownerships for African Americans: South Carolina, Maryland, Mississippi. Top three right there: Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Virginia, Delaware, Florida, and North Carolina. Coming on in at the bottom. Then you have the worst, right? Iowa, with Minnesota, and y'all deep in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Hawaii, Nebraska, Nevada, Washington, New York. Y'all love talking about New York. Y'all own nothing in New York, Rhode Island, and Arizona. Um, what was so special about what they did when they came to Colorado? Was it just the fact that they worked jobs other people didn't want, or they worked a
They
particular
did
type of?
that.
Hmm.
They worked jobs that other people didn't want, but they had productive kids.
Hmm.
They turned all their kids into high efficiency producers. Now their kids turned out like everybody else kids did after a while. However,
Hmm.
those kids were productive on a one-to-one basis. Like my
Hmm.
family actually did the same thing. Like my silent generations, aunts and uncles, they were either nurses or they were retired military or a mixture of both or an actual union and a mixture of both, all three. The family kept together. They produced very productive kids, but the kids pissed away that kind of thing. We talk about the boomer generation thing, but it wasn't all boomers. It was
Hmm.
just the people who actually decided to piss that away, and you could tell by the actual outcomes of the actual children what the actual adults were actually doing. But the children actually made a choice, a deliberate choice to do that because it wasn't drilled in them. Once they got like an older BMW or even a used car at 15, 16 years old, they thought that they made it. They didn't have to do anything else. But everybody else was thinking about the future. The future, getting their kids into the skilled trades, into college, drilling stuff in their head, and even the whites will fail behind in those areas just the same. Like a lot of people don't understand that rural America is the black community right now, modern day, in the 80s. They don't even know that.
I try to tell people, they don't believe me. Like the fact that under Donald Trump, 55% of the increase of white women going to jail had increased to like
Yes,
ridiculous numbers over 5 years because it was all related to drug and drug trafficking, driving
yes,
pills across to middle of nowheres, um, and it was basically causing, like mass incarceration because you have mandatory minimums, and people. So all of a sudden, Trump comes out and is like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna start pardoning people, letting people." I'm like, you guys, this wasn't for you. This was for all the white women that are going, like 50% increase of white women. Like black women rates of going to jail had dropped dramatically to the fact that they were
correct.
like, what's going on? Right. Um, and I just think that's people just, they enough people fell in for the trap. You know what I'm saying? Enough people fell for the trap.
But that wasn't the only thing. Like there was actually locking people up in high number for like receipt of stolen goods. A lot of women in like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, rural Illinois
Mm-hmm.
were going to jail for receipt of stolen property that came with mandatory minimum sentencing. Like those laws were meant for to come after other people, but these people were actually going to jail at high rates
Mm-hmm.
for that. And people are like, well, you know what, we got all this kind of criminal justice reform. I'm like, for who? They expect for you to be criminals. They don't expect for their own people to be criminals. Come on
Right.
now.
Um, so and that's the thing when you talk to men who are in transportation, they see some stuff. They see some backward towns. They see some wild behavior that a lot of people don't. If you watch too much Hallmark Channel, you think every small town's a beautiful little tiny. It's got coffee shops and farms and it's wonderful. Um, but that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Here's a chart right here. We talk a lot about income over here at Man of Tomorrow, and I've noticed people get a little upset. They get a little and everybody makes six-figure income. Everybody's making six-figure income, and I just wanted to show you right here. This goes to 2020. So of course some people say, Erica, you didn't it doesn't go all the way. But this is right here, the U.S. census from 1948 to 2022. Essentially, back in 1948, people were making 9 grand. Okay, now we're here and we're at 30 grand. Right. So when people argue with me online about why you always talking about money, because we're the group with the least money, right? And that's not always the case. There's other groups that come into this country and they'll have less money, but they'll always do what? Go buy a home or start a business. Even those Latino children you're talking about, Man of Tomorrow, when they researched kids here in Texas for like 20 years, just followed a Latino children along their school and education. The kids grew up and did exactly what their parents did 95% of the time.
Yes.
People model what they see. People are going to do what they see. They're going to model what is being presented to them. So part of part of that is I like your commentary because you talk about the cool uncles, and if you could expand in that thought process and who are they and what does that mean?
I mean, for me, the cool uncles were the individuals who proclaimed that they were good at women, but they failed at every other thing in life. And these individuals had unrestricted access to younger kids within the black community. The people who actually failed at everything in life, because the actual productive people moved away from the unprotected people in the actual community. That's actually what happened. Your union tradesmen, the people in the military who was highly mobile, stationed on military bases and everything else, the people who were travel nurses and everything else, they by circumstance moved away from the actual outcomes of the people who was in the actual community itself. So you needed an actual another type of man to actually rise up to be the actual kind of den father for people who were created in circumstances that they shouldn't have been in. And this is where we have the cool uncle, the guy who's 50 years old but dressed like an 18-year-old, Kango hats and all this kind of stuff that's been out of style for 30 something years. And this is what the actual kids look up to an actual father figure within the actual community based off the actual some of the choices that the women chose as men, but it's actually these people knew well better that the actual outcomes that they was actually investing in, they knew well better that what they was investing in was wrong, it was bad, it was not what everybody else was doing, but everybody else leaned on the actual cool uncle to carry the damaged culture actually forward. And the actual cool uncle was an actual failure. But the actual people who actually left, they didn't really come back in the way that they are right now and showing them that there is a different way. So it's kind of like the people who did leave, they left, but they didn't provide like a staircase to get to where they were. They just wanted to get away from these actual individuals who was left in the community and they just wanted to have a happier life. Now they're not even satisfied with a happier life. They want to actually damage and destroy and actually get rid of these actual cool uncles who cannot actually survive on their own unless they actually guide people from a damaged upbringing into deliberate results that they know is not going to work. So now you have more people like me, more people like people in their 50s and 60s who made it out, who's actually pretty vocal about getting rid of these actual individuals who are left out there, who's trying to guide these people into circumstances that they shouldn't be in. And they cannot stand up to the actual criticism.
Man, listen, I'm actually stuck with a cool uncle quotation marks in one of my rental properties where literally the nephew inherited the land, inherited the property, and was like, he couldn't think of a way to get rid of the uncle. And he was like, oh yeah, my uncle paid. He didn't tell us it was his uncle at first. He gave us all this paperwork. Oh, this is my tenant, yada yada yada. And we get the property and we talk to the tenant. He's like, I've never paid that in my life. I've always paid him like $300 here and there. I'm like, what? So then they the realtor and all these people call back the guy. He's like, yeah, it's my uncle, but and so the future for the cool uncle is not good. It's literally dependent on, in our community, grandma passing away or his
Yes.
mother passing away and him inheriting her home. And because of her condition, usually he's like the last one, kind of helping care for her or being there more full time than most people. And I can just tell you from my grandmother, she left her youngest two children a lot of her properties because she felt like, well, all my other daughters are doing so well in life. I want to help them. And those properties sat and just rotted into the ground till we just nagged them to death about it. Till they were like, all right, somebody just take it off our hands. Right? Like grandma's leave them properties that could just be rented out and go do well. And that's kind of that, unfortunately, that cool uncle, right? The cool aunt or the cool uncle who grandma or grandpa's just trying to help because they feel bad for them. It doesn't help them. They never get the kick in the butt to change. They never get the turning point.
Correct. And they actually move into the property and they don't upkeep it. Like my grandfather lost his leg in World War II, and he built damn near the whole city of a specific city in Mississippi with one leg. Cut all the grass for all these people, did all the actual building on most of these properties and everything else. He did all the clearing the land when it came to building these projects and everything else. And guess what happened when he died? When he died, his actual property went to the highest level male within the family. He destroyed everything because my grandmother died before my grandfather had died. And then my father, who was the youngest, died before my grandfather had died. So it was like going back and looking at it, it's like the lack of taxes being paid on the property, along with the continuation of not upholding the actual property itself to what it need to be, it made everybody else come in and actual buy the actual property from under them after it became such an actual disappointment that these people actually came through and did that. And I just turned around and I just started buying these things from under them. Didn't tell them what was going on. I would call them and ask about the property. They wouldn't actually care about it. I was like, well, there's a guy from out of town who owns it. I'm like, I wonder who that guy is. I'm like, this guy right here. And that's how it was. It was like they would never check into it. It's like one of my uncles check into it. It's like, wait a minute. The person who's been buying all this property is. I'm like, if you say it, don't say it. Don't say it. Yeah, I've been regathering everything from things from Swiftwater, Mississippi to everything else. Just put it in corporations' names that's outside of the
Right.
actual state. No
Hmm.
one actually cares. They don't care about Googling
They
or
just see a
Noogling
LLC.
anything. Yep. And they'll be like, well, you know what? That's not for us. And it's like, no, I own all this stuff, all of it. And it's like, well, why would you buy it and not put these people in? I'm like, because they actually had the chance when they actually had the first dibs on the land. And people don't understand is
Hmm.
that these things are pretty vocal, pretty actually like I can go to the land that I actually own. I can go to the actual lady who's 80 or 90 years old
Right.
and be like, what has been going on across the street from here? I'm like, well, you know what? The grass grown up everywhere and they came through and they tore the house down. And I wonder who it owned. I'm like, ma'am, I've owned this property the entire time. No way. Yeah, yes, way. Yes, this is, when your actual sons or grandsons come through and cut the actual grass, where do you think that money came from? It came from me.
Hmm.
It came from me to actually keep this actual property up because this is our stuff. And I'm not going to let nobody come in and take our stuff away from us. But
Right.
the people who actually had the dibs on the actual land because it was landed in their name or an uncle died and it went to the actual kids, they did nothing with the actual land itself.
They literally, I mean, man, I've had phone calls with men of tomorrow, who basically live with their parents, and they were just like, "Yeah, I need help getting this and this so I can move out." I'm like, "Are you gonna help your parents with the house?" Because they were always saying, "Oh, I got to move because my parents' house is raggedy." And I'm like, "Are you gonna help them with any repairs before you leave?" No, they're just gonna leave. And so you can't complain about people inheriting stuff if you guys won't help keep it up.
And
Someone
you
in the
have to
comments said your
understand that.
grandpa's amazing, by the way.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like I have
You have many funny stories.
story about
Beating
my
people up.
grandfather that would actually horrify people. But at the end of the day, he was a decent guy. He actually wanted to make sure that because I was one of his um, last people that he actually got to teach
Right.
me,
Mm-hmm.
and God, I want to create a book about that. But I think that some of those things I talk about is so far well over these people's heads, and if I actually even explain those things to people, like, oh, okay, that's why MOT is the way to use it, because I had to see a person go from kicking people off properties, making people change their last name, so actually seeing properties being invested and actually explaining to me how it wasn't ever going to make a difference and is
Mm-hmm.
actual the head start that I'm going to give you in life.
Mm-hmm.
You need to stop looking at inherited property as an actual investment. I'm investing in you by giving you my entire life story.
Right. Right. I mean, this is and so my grandpa is still alive, on my father's side, late 80s, still driving a car, still going doing things, still, building houses and fixing stuff at the church, and you're like, "Oh, dude, slow down, right?
My
Like, take care of yourself."
grandfather was the same way. One
And that's,
leg,
man,
drove
that's how they stay
cab,
young.
did all this stuff, and it's like I went to one of my silent aunt's house, and my
Hmm.
silent aunt was on top of the house with a walker, teaching her son that she taught to do things about how to roof. She's on top of the house with a walker,
Hmm.
80 something years old, teaching her son, who actually pissed away everything that she ever taught him about how to roof. I'm like, why are you up here? And it's like, I got to tell him that I used to do this stuff growing up. I'm like, so how come he didn't get it? It's like, you know what? He didn't want to do it. And I had to come up here and show them that I could be able to do that. Went down to, the place, rented an actual machine to actually get her on top of the actual place. And that's what it was.
Yeah, they have really cool like levelers now. I don't know if they're, I'm not gonna call it a leveler, but basically you throw the bag on there with the shingles of the roof and it's like a little elevator, y'all.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Men can get on it
Yeah.
too.
That's
You just gotta
exactly
put your
what it is.
feet on it. That's what he's talking about. But
Yes. Yes.
um there's, and I'm being careful here, I'm being delicate because I want to be respectful to all the men that are watching. It's gonna be like, Erica gonna say something wrong and I'm gonna get her. I can tell in conversation, man, tomorrow. I don't know if you can as well, but I think you can. Men who were raised 90% of the time by women versus men who had men around them and men in the home. The demeanor, the attitude, the emotion. I mean, it's like you can tell night and day. And it's like, um, do you think that's contributing to some of the issues we're seeing out here currently?
Yes, but it's not a dead end situation. It chooses to
Right.
be a dead end situation when the person inherits that as this is my actual culture. But I've seen people raised in single mother environments where they turn out better than they would if they were actually connected to their actual parents. Let's just say that egg donor or sperm donor actually were involved. Like a lot
Right.
of people
Right.
think that having their actual parent involved with the actual situation is going to create a definite better result.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the case
Mm-hmm.
because if these people are not inherently productive and inherently trying to guide their kids toward a certain type of circumstance, then it's really not going to be able to work, even if they are not there.
Right. Right. There was there was uh, there was a school called New Bern, and it made the news because it's over here in Texas, right? Let's just go there, and they had 50 students out of all their students, not able to graduate. So they done celebrated prom. They done promed it up, right? Man, tomorrow they done dressed to the nines. They done took lots of pictures. They done had a party at the house. Well, guess what happened? They're like, hey, you can't walk, and so the parents are outside protesting. Now, first thing in my head is my parent, if they're working a job and productive, they don't got time to stand out front of the school and protest.
Oh
They don't
no.
have time. And another level to this is someone said it in the comments and it blew my mind because I had to think about it for a minute. These 50 kids didn't even have a plan for adulthood, right? Because if you're going to community college, you got to send your transcript. They'd let you know it ain't, you're not going to graduate. If you were going to regular college, you got to send a transcript early. Then you knew you weren't going to graduate. Even if you're going into the military, you would have had to send a transcript. So these kids basically were going to do nothing. They were going to come right out of that high school and be doing nothing. And the fact that they think their parents should be out there, yeah, they're not going to let me walk. High school is not the pinnacle of your adult life. That was just to see if you can follow task and finish them. And so if you've got 50 kids at a one high school that are 18-year-old seniors, almost 18-year-old seniors with no direction, how do we get a hold of some of those people?
I mean, you got to start way earlier than that. Like what we've done in the Mississippi Delta, even though I am an atheist, I do believe in the rebuilding of the black church. Make that make sense. But I actually think that the community should be guiding these individuals, even if the parents can't or won't, because everybody else shouldn't be able to suffer the consequences of a misguided child when there are social resources that can be able to pull these individuals out of these circumstances. I am a product of that. When my dad died and my grandfather died and my grandmother died, sports was the only thing that kept me kind of in the fold of being around productive men. Now, I didn't like sports at all, but that it was the only way that I was able to actually stay on the actual track that I was before they actually died. Right. So I had to, it wasn't about me having the things that I thought I didn't need. I actually was around people that I knew that I needed the help of, who actually cared about and gave a damn about where I actually ended up at. Like teachers told me very early, you're going to graduate in 2 years. Like I failed in ninth grade. Like I went ninth, 11th, 12th. Right. Like I was a smart kid, but I didn't see any point to it because of I didn't understand the future. So people were like, "We know you're not a dumb child, but you got to be able to get out of here. We're able to survive here because we're teachers and we have pensions and we have 2 months off a year, but you can't survive here like we're surviving here." So after they died, like the parental figures died, they kind of took up the mantle and was like, "No, we know who you are. You're not a dumb kid, and you got to keep this thing going, and you got to leave the city any way that you can. Do you have any uncles and aunts that you can actually live with?" But me, I didn't know any of those people, but it was like, well, you got to go to the military. Okay, so when do I leave? You leave graduation night. What? Graduation night? Like, yeah, you got to leave like everybody else. And that's how it was. They were upfront and way upfront with what I should be doing. And it meant everything to me. That they was honest about the situation and honest about how they couldn't survive themselves and there was no way they was going to feed children into those circumstances. I love those people for that.
They saved your life. Really, they
Yes,
did.
they did. Yes, they did.
Lots of horror stories of kids not knowing to do, lack of guidance, people take advantage of them. Um, so, man, that leads us to military. And so many times we get some pushback in our community about military. Oh, military. But almost 90% of all the black men I meet and women that come out of military, they own their own home. They're doing pretty well. Their health isn't that bad. They're usually seeing doctors and doctor's appointments quite frequently. They usually transition into another career where they get a second pension. I like to point out the Army has over 700 careers. If somebody's a cook or a janitor, it's their choice at this point. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it
like,
is. Yes,
like,
it is.
did you study for the ASVAB? Did you practice at all? Like, they're not, they're not forcing people into janitor and cook positions. That just means, hey, this kid didn't even, spell their name right. Let me just put them somewhere. You know what I mean?
Or compositions like I was in. It was my
hmm
fault that I ended up being a cop in the actual Air Force. I actually scored very high. I didn't not want to wait 6 months or 8 months to get into an actual more marketable career field. I wanted to leave graduation night. And the only way that you can leave graduation night is become explosive ordnance disposal services, which is whatever they want you to do that nobody else wants you to do, or being a cop. It was totally my fault. Totally 100% my fault. I was definitely smart enough to be past where I was, but I was so hyper focused on leaving Mississippi graduation night that I actually put myself behind another, well, what I thought was another 10 years, but I gained so much other experience in how to handle people in being a cop very early that
For
it
sure.
literally eclipsed every other education that I could ever be a part of. Like
Hmm.
it turned out to be something that was behind, but I knew how to read people so well and circumstances so well that it nearly boosted me ahead of people once I actually got out of the military very quickly.
For sure. And so in retrospect, I know you said you're a cop, and then they were giving you a hard time when you want to leave. Can you expand on
Yes.
that a little bit?
Yeah, it's like I wanted to go into IT because that's what I was going to school for. But a lot of people there was like, this is a critical career field, and we would rather you leave the actual military itself than you actually cross train into a job that, quote unquote, none of those people there could actually qualify for. Because people don't understand this, but in some branches of the military or whatever the actual career field is, they would make sure if you're actually going to school and you're actually getting the school paid for, that they'll make sure that you actually can't go to school effectively and efficiently. But me, I lived around the corner from Denver Technical College. So I had to drive past the college to go home. So I would just be attending classes out of session. And I still got credit for it as if we even not went to class within session. Because most times when they actually put you on swings and mids rather than day shift, regardless of how you actually perform, they expect for you to actually drop out of school because they actually get to sign off on how much school that you get to go to. But I still kept my actual credits as three classes during the entire time, and they couldn't figure out how to break it. They didn't understand that after I worked an 8 or 12 hour shift, I was still going to school for 6 hours after that and still be able to actually perform like everyone else. Most times in uniform, and most time I outperformed everyone else in the actual classroom, even though I worked 12 hours previously. So I would be work a 12-hour shift, and I would actually go home and be in school for 5 hours. Well, these people would just come in off a fresh night of sleep. I haven't went to sleep yet. Then after class, I would actually go to sleep for like the 6 or 7 hours, and then I'll wake up, be back in formation for the actual cop stuff at night. Like, so where do you find the time? I'm like, I've always had the time. It's just that I didn't spend it on anything else other than my actual future career. Not being here or worried about these things is what's not something that I was worried about. So I was actually the model for actually teaching other airmen in the Air Force how to actually go to school and actually be effective with it. But a lot of people thought that, man, this is way too much time to be spending. I knew exactly the time that I was spending and what I wanted to spend it on and what the actual results was. I was actually that plugged in to where I wanted to be.
You actually forecasted your life. With a lot of people you
Yes.
meet, whenever I meet somebody and I talk to them coming out of the military, I don't even know what I want to do. I'm like, oh, you might as well go back in. 9 times out of 10, they do go back in. I had a friend, he did 10 years. He came out, he was in school, he was excited. He's older than us, of course, right? He gets his first black girlfriend and she gets pregnant. And he know what he does? He's like, I'm finishing, I'm graduating, but I'm going back in the military.
Yep.
And we just all look at him like, we figured as much. I mean, like, you've now added, he married her. I'm not crapping on them. They've been together ever since. So they've been together, I think, 11 years now. So I'm not even trying to play him. But these are things that you avoided 10 years in the military, getting anybody pregnant, getting married, doing anything silly. And then you get out and all of a sudden you're like, whoop, oops, knock somebody up. um, it's one of those things where if you have a plan, the military isn't bad. And a VA loan, no money down home isn't bad. And the
Sure
healthcare you
isn't.
receive isn't bad, right? I remember this guy saying he moved somewhere and he's like, "Oh, there's no new VA near me," and I want to go, "Well, work the network, right?" And so it's one of those things where you're talking to people who the military gave them discipline, it gave them structure, told them what time to get up in the daytime, how to dress, how to look, and then when they leave the military, it's like, and that's unfortunate. But
I mean, they turned into a Taliban field commander with no experience,
right.
and even started looking like it. And it's
Oh
like,
yes, the beards, the
yeah,
operator beards. You're like, where are you
oh
going? Are
yeah,
you shooting
yeah.
somebody tomorrow? What are you doing? Excuse me. I know you can't be.
You
Uh,
know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
because of like a
instant
certain individual who had like a
operator. That
high count of
man,
unalivings, and everybody's, well, I'm
man.
just gonna look like this guy, and I'm like,
I'm just gonna say this. My ex fiance, father was military, mother was British Air Force. Super interesting. And his brother made guns for the military, so he had this contractor, actual, contracts where he actually made guns for. So he's out there, and he was on one of those shooter shows. I'm trying not to give it away too much, but and so my ex would join him out there, and they would be dressed like retired fat operators, and it was
yeah,
super
yeah, yeah.
funny because the guys would be like, "How long ago did y'all get out?" Because they were kind of plush, you know what I mean? And
Oh
they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, we've never been in," but that's that. I'm a dress like an operator, you know. And it's like, dude, you ain't operated nothing but a biscuit. Get out of here with that, man. Um,
Misses and gravy or even syrup.
Biscuit,
But
gravy,
yeah.
Bojangles, operator of Bojangles. William Smith said he ain't lying. My supervisor's favorite line was, "It's good you taking classes, but the job comes first." That's messed up. Dang.
That is the
He
line
don't care
that they
about your
take.
life.
And right after they talk to the higher ups about why is this one individual is so hell bent on still going to school, and is still going to school regardless of what they've done to you, and he's still, because once you start signing up for classes, it goes to your actual supervisor, it goes to the first sergeant, and it goes to the commander. It's like, we put this guy on swings and miss. Why is he still going to school? Could you explain this to us? Well, I don't know. Like, do you have any other troops who are doing this? Well, no. Okay, why aren't you doing what this guy's doing? Well, I don't know. And that's what it is. So they're trying to figure out, well, how do you have all the time to do this? I'm like, that's my future.
Hmm.
Of course, I'm gonna spend time on my future rather than what you guys think is important.
My mom said if the army wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you one.
Correct. I have heard the same thing for the Air Force.
You know it.
Like, like, like if they wanted to issue a spouse, you would have got one pregnant in basic training, and you all guys would be screwed equally across the board.
So so I want to be very clear, you guys. I'm very, you know me and you know my channel. I'm very pro military. There's 263 people here. Hit the like button. Drop a one in the comments if you're enjoying the commentary. I come from a military family. Essentially, our family had so many boys at one point that they just figured, look, we're going to send every single boy to the military for 4 years, and when he comes out, he can go to school anywhere he wants. He can do anything he wants. Our family had already had enough football players that played at NC State that we already had a family legacy, like 10-20% off classes. And so, that's what they did. It was only 4 girls, really 5, but 4. And we had all these boys. And so they just sent everybody to the military. And so no girls in our family in the military except for one. When she got pregnant, our family's like, well, what you going to do with this? Because this is not the plan we had for you. And now she's in the Air Force. Um, but our family has always been very pro-military because it was a stabilizing point in the 80s when we lost our money in our farms, some of our farms. And so I've always had good comments about the military. I don't want y'all to think I'm bashing because we're talking about it in this way. I just want to be very clear on that. And I just know how people are in the comment section. So anyway, continue.
Yeah, and it's like most of my father, uncles, everybody was in the military. Actually, I didn't even know a lot of these people was in the military. Like, when you look at those pictures of your actual aunts and uncles at your grandfather's house, you don't even realize that they're military uniforms
Yeah, they're in the
until you see,
uniform.
until you realize, like, once you go in, like, what an army uniform used to look like in the 70s. Or I'm like, wait a minute, all these people went into the military,
Yep.
but they never talked about it. They
Hmm.
never talked about it. They never guided you through. They never done anything.
They just
They
push you out
want you
there in
to
the world.
find out. Correct. Want to find out on your own, and it was like, okay, but you have
It's
to
like a
understand.
wishing and hoping in our community. We just hope
Yes,
they do the best. Well, that's not helpful. That's not helpful.
I mean, hope isn't guidance.
Yes.
Hope isn't guidance. People don't understand. Like, I got more guidance from like my chief master sergeant when I first went in, sat down, sat at the table, and I'm like, whoa, look at all these. look at all these stripes. And I was like, so where are you from? I'm from Mississippi. I was like, big mistake. What are you doing here? What are you talking about? I'm 18 years old. I'm like, that's an even bigger mistake. You don't even know what you want to do yet. And I'm like, why? Just wait through so much. I'm like, you about to go through a whole lot more. Just wait till you figure out what you actually want to do in life. And you got to take this conversation a little bit more seriously. Let me show you how you're not going to end up. You see that guy? That guy's an E7. His wife left him. You see this guy right here? He's an E4. He's an E3. This is. These guys thought that they can impregnate any woman that they want to, and there will be no consequences for doing so. And if you want to be like them, by all means, there are many different ways that you can get in this actual process. Or you can think about your future life right now at 18. So that way you don't end like these dudes at 36. And I'm like, whoa, grandfather never lived to tell me this stuff. Father never lived to tell me this type of information. And it's like you start talking to the real versions of real life once you go in. Like coaches never had this type of
Right.
information. And it's like, this is what I wanted the answers, but it's like I had to go through so much nonsense that I didn't need to go through to get real answers on life because my uncles didn't do it, my older brothers and sisters didn't do it. They was in the military. They could have told me the career fields to actually dodge. They could have talked to somebody else. My sister retired 27 years Air Force. She could have
Wow.
clearly told me what to dodge. Never told me anything about what to dodge. They thought that the only way that you're gonna learn is that you go through it.
They're the
Wow.
if you touch the stove, it's hot. Now you low. Now you know kind of learning technique.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
So sorry, yeah, that sucks. But yeah, I mean, but you were able to come out, be a cop for a little while. Was it a cop or was it a body? What was it?
I was a cop for a little while. Then
Mhm.
I went to being a fugitive recovery agent, which is a bounty hunter.
Bounty
For
hunter,
people who
dog
don't
the
know what
bounty
that is,
hunter.
yes, I did work with him more than probably about 10 or 15 times.
Hmm.
I'm not going to talk about those experiences
That
ever
guy's
on
very
YouTube.
unique.
Yeah, he sure is. And
And married a new wife. His other wife died. He married another one. I mean, his wives be half his age and still be kicking the bucket before him. It's insane. So
because he's
yeah,
on some substances that
that part,
younger
that
people
part,
cannot
that part.
be on for a long period of time, but it's part of his system.
Like Hulk Hogan and all them. Those guys are half pill,
Correct,
half man.
correct.
Hmm.
And it's like you have to understand that you have to stay in your lane, and you have to have a way out of the lane that you chose. And that's what I really learned from all those people who are in that type of situation.
Hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure that I'm in a lot of pictures of the guy from Colorado Springs with, I mean, uh, just imagine
Hmm. Hmm.
looking like a Taliban field commander and just,
The scarf on the neck. Where are you going?
yes, yes,
This
and
ain't
it's
even.
like,
There's no sand out here. Why are you dressed like this? Yeah.
and it's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's gonna come out later on, but
Yeah.
you're gonna be able to like, that was MOT. Like, yeah, I had the gold badge around my
Oh, I
neck.
thought you were about to say
It's
go too
like,
far. I said, oh no, no.
no, no, put the gold badge around my neck, and it
Hmm.
just it was horrific.
For sure.
And I had like long hair and braid, if
Long
you can imagine
hair.
it. Yes,
Whoa.
yes,
That's that
yes.
army revolt when you come out and you're like, I'm gonna grow my hair out now.
I mean, because I wanted to look like a Taliban field commander. Big
Hmm.
beard, big hair, big everything else. And it was like once a person just pointed out to me, I'm like, you're going if you ever do anything in life, they have these pictures of you in public,
Hmm.
and this is what they're going to show of you. So if you don't want to be this guy, I suggest you change it now before you get into some major trouble.
For sure, for sure. One of the things that I laugh a lot when you come online is you talk about unproductive people. I love the way you said unproductive people. people looking to make a life with unproductive people, and I usually call it the convincing. Right, we're trying to convince people, and I sometimes do it myself on this channel. I have to catch myself. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to share information, and you can be mad at the information, but 9 times out of 10 you're mad because no one in your family exposed you to the information. You weren't well educated, and it hurts because you're like, hey, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Man Tomorrow, if you see it on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, where they'll be doing street interviews and ask people how much money they make, and they run into
Oh
black
yeah.
people all the
Oh yeah.
time. They had a black couple in Atlanta. They were both making 120. Half the comments were like, I don't believe them. The other half were like, oh, they should be getting paid more. They should ask for a pay raise. And I said, you got to think about it. This black couple were in front of a camera. They were not about to tell, even if they both make 150, they were not about to tell their family and friends that. They weren't
I
going
can't.
to. That's what they were thinking. Like,
Here's the thing.
who might see
Here's the
this?
thing. Most people online know how much money I make. I have brothers in my family who don't even know what I make. Period.
Right.
I have aunts who don't even know what I make.
Mm-hmm.
Period. When I go around them, I look like Taliban field commander, guy who ain't shit. That's the role. And I have to grow into the role over several months before the actual holiday season. I have to time what I look like when I go around these people.
So they be telling
Because
them,
they
there's
don't,
my cousin.
yeah.
Got out the military looking like that.
They'll be like, oh man, like what do you do now? I'm like, yeah, I work for Whack and Hut. They're like, man, so what do you do? I'm like, yeah, I'm just at a Target and I just do security. Oh, okay. Are they
Now,
hiring?
now why do you do that? Why do you do that?
Because if they actually knew what I actually did for a living, most of the conversation would be very different. Because there are people who are out about what they actually do, how much money
Mm-hmm.
they make, and even though they don't like their reception at the actual facility, and I'm going to call it a facility, that they actually go to meet other family members, they don't want to actually own up to what they're actually doing. And they don't realize how big a mistake they actually made until they actually get there. Because everybody is trying to figure out this is the guy with the money. How do we get the money out of this guy? Like, you're
Yep.
going to do this angle, you're going to do this angle, these kids are going to do this angle, and we're going to get something out of this dude. Period. That
Right.
was before like Uber and Lyft. Now they
Mm-hmm.
can't really do that. You can just be like, "Hey, you need a ride home?" Yeah, I got 3 stops. Ha, 3 stops, too easy. Less than $50. You know, guys don't live that far away.
Right. Um, and I've just come to one of those. What's crazy is if you're super productive in your family, sometimes they just think you should be beyond what you are, right? So I remember I made a bunch of money, and I finally was like, I'm almost a millionaire. And my family's like, you should have been a millionaire. You're so smart. Use your smarts. And I want to be like, that's awful. How you're
No, no, no,
responding. But it was almost
no,
like,
no,
well, you should have been already did that. Well, who was going to show me how to do it? When was it going to happen? When was it
no.
supposed
But
to happen?
they was like, "That's great. When do we get the benefit off of this?"
Facts,
I'm
that
like,
part.
that is an excellent idea that you're doing well. But are we doing well because you're doing well? Think about
Yeah.
it. And
How
it's
can we
like,
do well off you doing well?
yes, and it's like, okay, so how can I clout chase off of your name? Who do I talk to? What are your contacts? How did you actually do it again? So that way I could be able to get my actual light on you resume together about how
Right.
I'm going to benefit off of you. And it's like, the less you share, the less you have to share. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to not alert people about how well you're doing. It doesn't matter where you stay at. They're not leaving that area of town. Now, if you live in the same city, they get
That's
to break
harder.
into your house, and like
Not
they've
breaking in
done
your
to
house.
multiple people in my actual family,
Mhm.
women included, 80, 90 years old included. But you have to understand that the less you share, the less you're going to have to actually share,
Mhm.
because it doesn't matter what the circumstance is, it is way beyond where they actually are capable to do.
Right.
Yep. Rent a car, park your car at the airport, rent a car, go down there. Oh man, that's a great car. Yeah, this is a rental. And I don't live here.
I have
Yeah.
family members who are like, "Oh, I'll move, come move, and stay out here with you in Texas." And I'm like, "It's not that Texas made me great. I was already great. I was just it's you, sometimes you need to move so you can fully live in yourself or being yourself, right? Because every time I was in North Carolina, I was like, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because my family need me. Oh, why am I doing this? Because somebody needs a babysitter. Why am I doing this? And so it's like I need the space. I was gonna move either way. Um, I want to do a quick shout out to Justin Case. He said, I was a cook in the Army for 3 years and worked 12-hour shifts, went to college in the evening. I now own 7 rentals and a tax franchise. Congratulations. That comes from staying focused, staying committed to yourself and knowing you weren't going to be here forever, right? You're not going to be here in the Army forever.
Yeah,
I
like
had the,
most people don't even understand. Like once you're on your own path,
Mhm.
time slows down. Like time slowed down for me. Like people don't understand that people who don't have enough money to make it, they need time to speed up. So that way they can keep hitting those Fridays every other Friday so that way they can be able to afford the things that they think that they need. But the people who actually got their shit together, they're telling you they need time to slow down. They
Yeah.
need time to slow all the way down so that way they can enjoy life, so that way they can stop being so hooked on everything that's actually happening. And a lot of people don't want time to slow down because they have to live in the moment that they've actually failed at everything. And a lot of people don't want to actually look at the fact or even actually resolute on the fact that they've actually done it wrong. I can admit that I've done it wrong.
Right. Right.
I'm okay with it every single day that I talk about it. I tell people up front, like, so why would you even admit that? Because I want you to understand that you're not going to be able to need to admit that at some later stage because you
Hmm.
heard it from somebody who done it wrong. I did it wrong.
Right. 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 You guys comments. There's so many comments. I can't. I was stationed at White Man Air Force Base. I thought this was a joke till I googled it. I tell you what, there's actually a lot of wasted time off duty drinking when you could be earning a degree or a trade. There is this celebrated American culture of party, party, party. Let's all party, party, nonstop. You look up and you're like, what did you have? You just had 5 years of just getting tore up, tore down and tore up, right? Let me see. Oh wow, you guys have some interesting comments here. Thank you, Drake Hardy, for the Go Navy Be Army. Worst thing I ever did was tell my brothers how much my VA pension was. Oh, John, I'm so sorry.
Oh, please don't do that
Oh, my mom made the
ever.
mistake. She's basically a golden parachute at Man of Tomorrow. She's basically at six figures. She's been in the army 27 years. When people 26, 27 years. And then she had multiple surgeries and things that happened. And it was like she had multiple MOSs. And I just tell people, why did you tell people how much you paid, mama? No. Now people always every payday, oh man, I'm a little short. Can I get 500 from you? Can I get 1,000 from you? Can I get 400 from you? They're calculating how much they need. Not and no, because you love them, you'll give it to them. I had a family member. I think I told this story plenty of times on the channel. We have a cousin that's like a second cousin, or whatever, however you describe it, distant sort of. In the same town as our family. Our family owns over 40 rentals. We've got properties. We've got people that will help each other. That's the best way to say it. And we had a family member renting a house from a white man in town for over almost 30 years. Man of tomorrow, the man comes to her. He's sick with cancer. He basically told her and a few other tenants that were older, hey, listen, you're older. You've been here your whole life. You want to buy this house? I'll sell it to you for about 30, 35. Now, at the time, Man of tomorrow, these are right by Fort Bragg. They're worth
Oof.
90. They're
Oh
worth
yeah.
90. You can rent them out for 1,200 to three guy soldiers, 3 rooms. And she goes, oh, I don't even have 30 to give you. I don't even have 30. He's like, well, go to the bank. See if the bank will, give you a loan. Oh, I don't even think I can get a loan from the bank. Now she's sitting here with a brand new Cadillac in the yard.
Brand new
And
furniture, brand
brand
new
new
everything
furniture, brand
else.
new everything else. Both her sons had been in the military. No reason why not. And looked up. 6 months later, he dies. Guess what? His son takes over and puts every single person that father offered those lands to out. He goes, "Oh yeah, you're done." He's like, "What do you mean? I'm going month to month? No, you're done. I'm raising the rent to the market rate. You guys have been paying
Yes.
400, $500 for like 30 years. My dad was just nice. I'm putting y'all out. It's done." Um, and just to see these ladies who She could have called any of our family members. I mean, this is the time when you had the Iraq war kind of going on. So some of our cousins were coming back from contractor gigs, and my mom's coming back. Like people had enough to pay 35,
Oh
and she had to
yeah,
pay them back
easily cash. Oh yeah.
cash. And so later she's like, "Well, I just didn't want to owe nobody." You're like, "Ma'am, no, you're full of excuses now. Now you got to live out in the country on a dirt road with a Cadillac going up and down a dirt road, tearing up your transmission. Come on, man. We ain't,
hmm
come on, man.
Not only that, but our tires,
The
suspension, everything
tires,
else.
the
Oh,
suspension.
Mississippi is full of rock roads. Oh yeah.
Now you driving a black Cadillac,
Yes.
rocks shooting everywhere.
Black by
So
choice, by the way.
by choice, by her own choice. And so some of the best stuff I hear you talk about, and again, I have to do it. We have to go there. The child support issue, just a little bit more. We're going to tidy it up and close it out with the child support and future of blue collar work. Um, we've had this space, and I'll even say we have a white space, you have a black space. Unfortunately, this is what it is. And a lot of white men, they joined groups, they joined chamber of commerces, they went to Congress, they wrote letters, they got laws fixed, they got things changed, right? People fighting for getting custody of their kids. And for whatever reason, it seems on this side of the field, it's more just repeatedly complaining about the situation. I'm not going to pay the situation. She crazy. She's dangerous. And then when you ask them, well, when you going to go get your kids? Now you cussed out. You know, tell me your thoughts on it, Minotaur.
I mean, because most people want you to shut up about the fact that I'm not taking any action. Because that's what it is. Because if you have parking tickets, the only way you're gonna get rid of those parking tickets is you're gonna have to go to the county assessor and make a deal. That's no different than anything else. A lot of people don't even understand that they've been sent the forms, the doing things about anything else. But once you have the ability to understand how things work, you can stop feeling sorry for people who are not taking action. Because a lot of people just don't want you to talk about the simple fact that, well, this person is not taking action, and they make these unceremonious claims that they actually won all this stuff by this type of stuff. I'm like, but the people who you're preaching to are people who don't take action. So how come you're not telling these people about taking the actions that can be able to help them get past these actual issues? The actual thing, it's all financial. If you cannot take financial action, you cannot stop future financial action to be taken against you. Doesn't matter what the situation is, doesn't matter what the circumstance is. If you're not taking financial action in the forefront, you're going to pay for it on the back end. But a lot of people don't want to hear about the fact that they ain't got their money together so that way they can be able to fight, they can be able to relocate the case somewhere else, that they can be able to actually talk to other individuals who actually won their stuff. No, they want to hear about the person with the moonshot who won without actually hearing about the moonshot circumstances about how they won. They don't understand that most of this stuff is a local issue. Child support is a local issue, a personal issue about economics. It's either you have the ability to fight for these actual things
Hmm.
or you don't.
Yeah.
Like I said, but like a lot of people are like, well, I tried in this state. I'm like, bro, don't you understand that there's 50 states in the union?
50
Like,
states.
I'm like, well, you know what? I don't want to move. Okay, so you want to stay located in a
Stuck.
locale where you're going to actually fight a battle that you're going to lose and you're not going to move to another place. You're not even going to research it or even call about it. Like a lot of these attorneys work on actual free consultations.
For
They can
sure.
tell you about it. I'm like, look, like most of the attorney help that I get, it's not even about retainer. It's about people who could
Hmm.
potentially help you in the future. And if
Yeah.
people can potentially help you in the future, they'll tell you what to do right away. They're
Right.
like, oh, okay, this is what you need to do, and you know what? I have a referral. Boom. Not only do they fix your issue, they fix you an issue, and then they send you to a person who can actually resolve your issue. But let's say that you're not even concentrated on that, and you're not even talking to the actual people that you need to talk to. Now you're talking to the people online, who's not taking any action, or maybe they have. There's no way to verify it, and now you're talking to actual individuals who is culturally dependent on you dealing with these actual issues that you're not trying to solve for
Hmm.
their own level of relevance. And people don't understand that your stuck position is funding somebody.
Right.
You need to understand that you're not funding anybody off of your failures, that your actual successes need to be benefiting you, not using this dumbass game, goofy stuff to
Hmm.
go out here with people who have way more experience than you. And these people are actually just trying to stick you in circumstances that they haven't solved. Like, they don't understand that.
Right. Um, you know, y'all have a lot of comments. I already see them. Yeah, the average black man, if he makes 30K, his child support is 250. Yeah, I've already showed the study from the actual center that tracks all this stuff. Literally said half the people on child support don't even pay. Like according to their records, because
Yes.
they got to keep records, and the average is only
Nor
274.
nor show up to court. No show up
No,
to
yep,
court to fight for the
yep.
actual custody of their kids. So what I'm doing right now is getting the actual 50 state thing done so that way I can start
Hmm.
talking to the actual states of letting you know how many people that are not fighting for actual custody of their kids, how many
Hmm.
people never show up to court, how
Yep.
many people never even actually go through the paperwork or do anything else, but they expect all this fairness without any type of representation on their part.
And they want a ton of sympathy. They go all over the internet. Oh, my baby mama crazy. She punching my kids in the head. She doing all this stuff. You'd be like, did you call the
So
police?
how did
Oh,
that
we
woman
don't
get?
call the police. We don't call the police over here. You're like, what?
And,
Have you found a lawyer? Are you in a better financial position? No. Why are you
why
just
would I
sleeping
do
with
that?
women, punching kids in heads? You know what I mean? You're like, what's going on?
Why would I do that?
Um,
I'm just gonna choose the same woman if the system is gonna be fair to me. Are you gonna work for me? Like, no. All this stuff is avoidable. It's not avoidable. I love this
yeah.
woman. No, 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 no. No. You want to be with a specific type of subsegment of person who's going to allow you to get away with this stuff, and it's not going to work out for you or your actual child, and you know what the actual things are. But when you invite these people on, they can't have a conversation from that aspect. You can't have a
Right.
conversation with a ex law enforcement official about
Court.
actions that people don't take to actually avoid situations. You can't argue with me about that. I've seen it, I've testified against it. I've been to murder suicides that did need to happen because these people did not go and get custody of their kids, and now they crying, whining, and complaining whenever their kids are up out of here, and now they better get hundreds of millions or even tens
Hmm.
of millions of dollars from the actual state because the state didn't do what they were supposed to do. But it's like, you got to have licensing for people to have kids. I'm sorry. You can be
We joke
licensed for
about that,
anything else.
and it's like we talk about it, but here's the crazy part. Well, I have a friend. He's a tall guy. He brought this girl down. He was in the white girls. Let's give it to him with this. He's a black dude. He brought down a white girl from West Virginia, and she cheated on him, stole money out of his bank account. So he sent her back. Right? She takes the kid with her, and he's like, no, no, no. You're acting irresponsible. I'm gonna keep our daughter. No, I'm gonna take our daughter. She goes up to West Virginia, drops the kid off at her parents, disappears. So he's going to court for a whole year, and the grandparents keep showing up. And so the judge literally goes, "Let me tell you something. Where this woman at? Oh, she's working. She's so busy working, she can't get here. She can't get here to court. You know what I'm gonna do? She got one more time. Now again, this is extending it out past a whole year. If this woman don't show up to court, and I'm giving her 3 months to have her time off her work, I'm gonna give this man custody." Now they were in West Virginia. He's in North Carolina. Black man, literally black man living at his parents' house because they all worked at a tech place. Huge house, plenty of room. And so, of course, 90 days go by. He goes back to court. Guess what happens? She doesn't show up. The parents are there again. And the parents literally go, you know what? We'll give her to him
Yeah,
because
that's
we
exactly
were
what it
just
is.
worried about the baby. But now she's not a baby no more. She's 4. And you know what? He can take his daughter. And I'm just going to be really honest. It's because, the little girl was starting to get a little more tan. Let's just go there. They don't know how to do the hair. They're tired. And they realized their daughter was not going to, they realized their daughter wasn't the victim here. She wasn't some poor, pitiful girl that he sent back to West Virginia and didn't take care of and all this other silly mess. And so when I hear people talk about, oh, court, they don't never give custody, it has to be extenuating circumstances. And I'm like, no, it's who shows up at the court, who has a job. The dude's working in tech. He was working, making like a chemical peel. He's like an engineer type deal. And it was like the judge was like, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I'm not playing this game with this young lady. Whoever this young lady is, she didn't even think court was important enough to show up. Here. So imagine it on the reverse. You're a young man complaining about child support. You don't show up to court. Now people say, Erica, that he can't miss work. Cool. They can get it rescheduled, right?
Yes,
That's
they
when you send
can.
your attorney to get it rescheduled, to get it delayed. And one of the things somebody said in here is a lot of guys don't want high paying jobs. They'll have to pay more in child support. And that's
Correct.
unfortunate because your
Correct.
high paying years is going to be the 30. It's usually for men, it's like 27 to like 45 or something to that effect. Because
Yep.
after that, it
Yeah.
starts going down. It starts going down. If you don't, and so if you're spending a huge part of your 30s avoiding financials, right? Avoiding money,
Avoiding the
avoiding,
productivity piece.
yes,
So that way you can be able to keep more money to be able to do what with. And
do
it's like
what?
these
Travel,
people don't,
cruises.
but these people don't even get with better women, even when they're not traveling and doing that. They deal with the actual second level of the same woman that they could not actually best during those years.
Right,
And
right.
she's just looking to cash out. And it's like, do you not understand that this stuff is something that can be avoided by you? But it was like, well, I'm just going to deal with bottom work forever, so I might as well choose something.
Right,
Something that you chose gave you the actual circumstance and the outcomes that you actually chose.
right.
I understand that people can change their mind at some certain point. A lot of people do. This is not the grand majority of personnel who are actually in these circumstances. It's not the grand majority of
Right. So we're rounding it up with the productivity piece. And as you guys see on the screen, I've had it on screen for a while. This is Black households versus all households. And if you can see the numbers here, at poverty, we're at the 19%. That means you're making under $15,000 a year, which is poverty. It's just, and this is household
Mississippi
income.
salaries.
This
Mississippi
is household
salaries.
income. So imagine everybody in your house, they've calculated it up. You're at under 15K. There's a whole book called Hermit Living. It was a white man wrote it for men. He was like, if you just want to fall off the grid, here's a guide to Hermit Living. And it sold a lot. The book was like a bestseller. I was like, y'all are aspiring to live under 15K a year, whatever. So then the next is of course working class poverty, which means 15K to 25,000. Of course, is bigger on our side than all households. 25% African American community is 25 to 50K, and I think that's where you're going to see most of us. Now they have this 36%, which I find slightly deceptive. 36% of Black households have 50K to 150,000. Again, majority of Black households have what? Multi-generational living going on. Grandma living there and the mama and the kids living there, right? Or cousins are living there, or different people are coming in and out living there because they need somewhere to stay. And so I see the middle class income and I'm like skeptical of it. Now, the next step is 150,000 to 200,000. If you have two people working, let's say they're both making 80K a year, that's 160. They would fall into this 4%, this wealthy 4% upper middle class. And then the 3% is 200K and over, which isn't a lot of money. I know everybody gets so mad, but if you look at your average dentist, your average eye doctor, your average plumber, they make over 200K a year. You know what I mean? Your average electrician, if they own their own company, your average handyman, if they own their own company. So when people say, "Oh, I make all this money," I'm like, compared to who? Compared to
Makes
what?
versus keeps.
That
Like a
part.
lot of people don't understand that being in 100 to 200K range under them taking FICO, Social Security, and Medicare out of your money is way different than actually you being a person who is a corporation of one person doing the exact same thing. I told a person on paper, and I'm like, you know what? I can guarantee you that you're wasting this amount of time. Like, you know what? If I tell you that you're wasting this amount of time, that you're gonna have to write me a $5,000 check for me to actually save you 10 or 15 or $20,000 a year. And the guy was like, "There's no way." I'm like, "There's no way." Let's pull out a calculator. Why don't you turn this LLC into an actual S corp or C corp? These are the write-offs that you get. I didn't know I could do that. I know you can do that because I'm not going to make a bet unless I can win. And I don't need to win every time, but I'm going to win in this issue. So I'm like, look, this is what you got. This is how much you make. You can put all your company expenses, no matter how ridiculous it is, under this. And it's like, well, I didn't know that I could do that. I'm like, I did. I always knew that you could do that. They're like, so how come no one else told me that? Because you're waiting on somebody at the end of the year to tell you that you should stay in a environment tax wise that they're keeping you there on purpose so that way they can make money off of you. Or you can deal with actual accountants and actually spend the same amount of money on taxes and be able to have a better tax setup. And you can actually backdate those things 5 to 7 years to where you can
Right.
even be able to, because that's how I knew about it, because I was able to
Hmm.
backdate it 5 to 7 years. And I'm like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that this person was just taking my actual income tax returns without even telling me about this? Like, essentially, yes. And they
Hmm.
will essentially play it back because now you have proper representation that will tell you about how these things work.
Right.
And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. This person who was buttering me up, thought that I was getting the best deal on the planet, was ripping me off the entire time. It was like, yes. Like, how is this able to happen? It was like, easy. Information. It's either you have it or you don't. It's
Hmm.
either you've been conditioned that these things are the same or you don't know that it even exists as possible. I'm like, wow. That was my fault for not knowing. It was
Right.
not my actual accountant position to let me know about how much money that he was ripping me off for. But it was my actual position as a business owner to know that I was being ripped off.
Hmm. So this is a chart, and as we talk about the productivity piece of this, this chart right here is super important because so many people, MOT, the past 2 years, you would have thought every black man in America drove a truck, right? You would've thought- like the way YouTube has played it, you think every black man in America has drove a truck. Now, again, this is again careful. This is 2012 and 2007 numbers. So yes, we're 10 years removed. We are going to get an updated one here, but number one is other services. Like over half a million of our businesses in the Black community fall under other services. The number two is healthcare and social
Yes.
assistance.
Yes.
Number three is admin support waste management. Number four is professional, scientific, and technical services. And then number five is transportation and warehousing. Number six is retail trade. Number seven is construction. We have 136,000 black construction owned businesses. Now you go next. Guess what next is? Arts and entertainment. You know we were going to be arts and entertainment heavy. Then the next
Of
is real
course.
estate. Then we go down to education, then food, then finance, which is the reverse of other communities, which is so interesting when you look at these numbers. And then all the way at the bottom, of course, is a few companies that are doing oil and mining and gas, and some agricultural and utility stuff. Some manufacturing companies, very small. So when I see this information, first thing that stands out to me is a ton of our folks are in healthcare, waste management, and transportation.
Yes.
What is the future of how we're going to get more black businesses? Because that's really the difference maker, whether people want to hear it or not, and more men in blue collar trades. Because the future of America, in my opinion, and the numbers I'm seeing is we're going to have people making things tech wise, a lot of tech. And then on the other hand of it, we're going to have people maintaining things, maintaining roads, maintaining bridges, maintaining parts of the city. We just had a bridge in Philadelphia collapse on a tanker because a tanker blew up underneath it. That bridge was supposed to be strong enough to last two, three, like all kind of stuff going wrong. But one thing
It
happened and it
happened
blew.
right before I actually went under the bridge because I was in
Ah,
Philly
got you,
that
got you,
actual weekend.
got you.
And you can see that actual fire 10 miles before you actually went to the bridge.
Wow, that's crazy.
You can see it. I mean, I thought it was a plane crash.
And it was a
I
black man,
literally,
unfortunately, that died.
yes.
Yeah, the driver. Yeah.
As in most cases, it is always black men who die in these actual circumstances. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the insurance payouts, they're not even going to consider that guy at all. ever.
Right.
Like I lost my first company because of a similar situation in another state. Exact same situation.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same situation, but it was in another state where black guy rolled an actual. Well, I mean, he didn't roll an actual tanker in a clover leaf, but that's what happened in my situation. Burned down $20 million bridge. They charged me that type of money. Had to get rid of the company.
Mm-hmm.
My fault. My fault. Turns out stuff in the system, all that kind of stuff. So when people talk about, well, why, how come you won't deal with these type of people in these type of circumstances? I'm like, because they cost a lot of money whenever
Mm-hmm.
things go wrong.
Right.
And a lot of people do not understand that the actual position that you put yourself in as an employer, you're going to be able to face it whenever things go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't understand that. And they don't want to understand it. And that's the thing, they don't want to understand it. Why? Too much responsibility. I just want to benefit. And as these actual situations happen, it ruins your ability to redo your actual insurance under those circumstances whenever these
Yes.
accidents happen. So, like a lot of people go out of business because they just can't afford the insurance, and
Man.
they haven't started another authority to actually done that. Like I've have 5 authorities for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, oh well, you have 17 trucks. Well, wow, how come you ain't got one on the same authority? Because I don't want to run into a
No, it's bad.
situation. I mean, you got to spread the risk around, and people are like, well,
Yes.
there ain't no risk because everything works. I'm like, everything works when you deliver.
Right.
There's a hell of a lot more, but when you crank up the truck and when you deliver, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And let me tell you, most of it you don't even know until your ass is getting pulled over, or until you go for your actual renewal at the end of the year. And a lot of people just don't want to think about the actual risk.
They just
They
want to show up.
so Yes, they so interested in wanting to benefit that the risk has to be outsourced to someone else, but not them.
Oh, listen, even I just saw Diamond Dave's name in the chat. He had a great, I was listening while I was at the gym and then I went to cryotherapy. That's why I'm not on camera, y'all. Like this is like a lot. And so he was saying on his show when I was in the gym, he was like, um, people want something that's a guaranteed win or something like that, like where there's no risk. And that's just it. Life is risk.
Oh
Anything
no
worth
no no no!
getting
Oh no no
money.
no! There's guaranteed failure. It's called not trying.
Guaranteed
Not
failure.
trying is guaranteed failure. That's what you
For
want.
sure. For sure.
And I do like him. I like him when he come on for the actual interviews. I do watch all those interviews, even though
He's
I do
got
not
great
say.
information. This is who you when I pick black men to come on the channel, I try my best to bring a various array of black men onto the channel. I've brought, I think at this point, 62 different black men in various careers, various different things. And to this day, people are like, you don't like black men because you won't agree with something silly about child support or about something. You don't like black men, Erica. And I'm like, I have nephews. I have black men all in my family. Like,
And
you
it's like,
guys
well,
are
it's,
really
it's it's like
weird out here.
the average black man has no say, and neither should they. As long as I have a choice, they don't have an actual voice. That's what my grandfather used to say. As long as I have a choice, they do not have a voice. Is
Well,
there
we're going,
anything else we need to discuss?
we're kind of going back to that a little bit. If you I don't know if you see the Amazing Lucas, he did a 180. He went from like Republican trolling black half black kid
Yes,
dude to
yes,
now
yes.
Democrat. It's interesting. It's interesting to watch. And he's like black people cuz he experienced it, right? He wouldn't I must just say it the nicest way. He wouldn't sell out for a check. He wouldn't make a deal to be a Brandon Tatum, right? And Brandon, I know him in
Oh
person. I meet
yeah.
him in person. He can meet me and talk to me. I've seen him in person multiple times. If he has a problem with me saying this, I'm okay. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't go that route. And so then he made a 180 and just pissed everybody off. But I respect him because he actually owns his stuff. He actually owns the companies. He owns the media companies. He has the S corps. He has all the lighting, the studio. Like I'm a business owner who plays on YouTube, right? I have a media company that's YouTube that gives me money. But before I came on YouTube, I had a business. I still have a business now, and YouTube is its own business, right? It's an information business. And what I've learned in this process is like if this computer shuts off, and my significant other said to me, if this computer shuts off tomorrow, can I go make money? Yes. Yes, I can. I will be just absolutely fine. And we have a lot of people, I think, unfortunately, in our community, they would not be. They wouldn't be okay. They couldn't just
And
goof off all day on Instagram.
and there are actually people within the space who have actually stolen the concept of Amazing Lucas by having disagreement days of their own.
Oh, I've seen that. I've seen
Yes,
that.
you have.
Well, here's the
Yes,
thing.
and they think that this person has actually came up with this concept of his
On
own. I'm
his
like,
own,
only thing I have to do
it's actually
is tag
O'Shea.
the into yes,
Oh, I
and the
know.
only thing I have to do is tag the actual individual Amazing Lucas came up with this and be like, this person is trying to steal your actual proportion of your brand. I guarantee you, like the way the kind of guy that Amazing Lucas is, he would do it just to see this guy squirm in court
Yeah.
over being able to not be able to
Yeah.
do it anywhere again.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. What I was originally trying to say is like he was saying African American folks are going to struggle having a political place in America in about 5 years.
Yes,
And we're not going to go too political because me and you are very opposite on that, but it's okay because I'm more local, you're more, but
we're not
we
opposite of
agree. We're
that.
not
I don't
opposite,
think
but we
we're
are liberal,
opposite. We're
right?
like
Like I'd go
I
take a
don't think
picture
we're
with
opposite.
Obama and Trump in the same day and be happy about it. Right?
Okay,
I
all
would
right,
do it in the
I
same
got it,
day.
got it, got it,
My
got it.
family would be like, terrible. Bring us the photo. Because then they would put up at least the Obama one in their house, right?
Yeah,
Because I believe all this is like all these people know each other. They're just on two opposites of the spectrum of financial
yeah, the
issues.
beneficiary class. Yes,
Benefit. Yeah, there you go. There you go. He was saying essentially, Lucas was saying, we're not gonna have really a strong position. And I said, you guys, we're kind of going back to if you don't own land and if you don't have a business, we don't care what you think. Right? Like you see what's
original Constitution 1.0.
yes. Like everybody's arguing about the ID thing and kind of blaming African Americans for it. And you were right. I agree with you, and I even posted it. It is somewhat of a poll tax to have your ID unless
Yeah,
they're providing the ID for free, right? And they've done this to in the South ruthlessly against black people. Black people move all the time and don't change their license. Is the license expired? If it ain't, we ain't going to go change it, right? You know what I mean? And I remember talking to several young black men who moved to Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, for jobs. And they were like, they kept getting pulled over and stopped because they hadn't updated their ID. They were getting traffic tickets. And they said, "Where's the law? Wait, when you move here within 30 days, you gotta change your ID." That's some old ridiculous Jim Crow stuff, y'all. It just is.
it is.
It just
It
is.
is.
Even when I'm from Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, they had you had to come get a gun permit. Now, that's against the Constitution. And they said, "Oh, it's to protect us. All these random soldiers, we don't know where they're from. They need to come apply for a gun permit." Now, they implied this in the 50s. Well, who were they doing that for? They were doing that for Black and Native
Of
American
course they were.
soldiers that were being stationed in Fayetteville and were not going to be unprotected. They were going to protect themselves. Well, you got to come down here and we got to judge your character. First of all, if I am in the military and I don't have any felonies, who are you to stop me from purchasing a handgun?
As a random yokel locally, you
Some
tell me that I can't
whole
purchase a
wall
gun.
place that's not even, I'm stationed in the base. Like, what are you talking about? Right. So, some of these things piss me off, but I know, you know, they finally got rid of it in North Carolina. And I'm going to go back on purpose and go buy a handgun from the store there because the lady was like, "You got to fill out the local permit." I said, "I do not. That's against the Constitution." And she was just like, I don't know what you want me to do. She's just at academy, like, "Ma'am, you just the law." I was like, now the law has changed, right? Um, and I truly believe we're going into a season, a strong one of I'm being careful here. I don't want to be too negative, but where the public school system is pretty much the leftover kids who parents just don't want to babysit or focus.
That is
A lot of
correct.
the good teachers are leaving or going to private school or just teaching homeschool kids. I know a couple teachers who just teach groups of homeschool kids. We're going to a position of you see the stand your ground law. We're upset with it, but if you actually look at the history of America, we were the first people to use the stand your ground. If the Klan came in North Carolina, came on your property, and you shot them, they didn't come bring a mob out, right? Now this is in the closer to the 60s than it was 50s or 40s. Yeah, they mob still came out. But there's countless stories, especially in North Carolina, where the Native Americans who were dating white women, and some of them look as dark as me and darker because we are the same people. Um, they were fighting with guns against the Klan,
Yes.
so much so that they ran the Klan out of Robertson County, North Carolina, and they ran out of Fayetteville. Like 3,000 people moved in a 6 month window to get out of there because they're like, y'all let these black people do whatever they want. No, you're not going to attack me. I'm going to defend myself. So a lot of the stand your ground stuff, it's portrayed ugly in Florida for sure, but it came out of the South. Like, hey, you guys can those people, those black people's property, and beating them up and raping their wives and attacking them. You know what I mean? And so it was like we were the original stand your ground law people. The NRA, some of the first black chapters were in North Carolina. They were black deacons, men who had these chapters. So I think we're going back. Unfortunately, the pendulum always swings back one way or another. We're kind of going to a point of after I saw the thing that happened to the black man on the train in New York. Um,
Yes.
you act up, someone might take you out, and the community and the mass of America doesn't care because it's like, was he a father? Was he married?
Yep.
Did he have a home?
Yep.
Did he have a job? Oh no. It's like they shrugged their shoulders, right?
And you have to depend on public awareness and actual disposition to action, so that way you can get actual justice for that. So this is why when people talk about the social justice, I'm like, this is social justice. Like the equality piece is that. So it's like they're like, oh, he's a Marine. Like, no, he wasn't performing Marine actions under the UCMJ.
Right.
No, he may have been a Marine
He
in the
was
past.
wrestling a homeless man on a train. That's what he was
Correct.
doing.
Yeah,
Poorly
but but it's like there's no Marine doctrine that tells you to hold the type of chokehold for that
for
period of time.
15 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. And it's like
Insane.
there
Like
is no
crazy.
there is no fighting commission that would tell you to hold an actual chokehold for that long. Like if you looked at all of the chokeholds that
Takes
have
like
been
60
done in the
seconds.
that's what I'm saying. If you look at all the chokeholds that have been done in the UFC in the past, the tap out is immediate because they're professionals fighting. So if you're actually dealing with a person who's not a professional and that happens, you're actually responsible for that. And this guy thinks that, oh, I'm a Marine. I'm like, you have no idea the stuff they say to military personnel in court and the fact that your ass should have known better. Please, you really think that coming out with an actual statement in front of those people and actually doing that is going to help you? It's going to count against you because you should have known better. There is no UCMJ covered event where you would actually point to a Marine and be like, you know what? The person didn't come on base. I didn't like him. I just put a choke on him for 15 minutes and it was fine. No commander would actually sanction such actions. You're not a Marine. You're a person who did something that you actually knew was wrong. You went up behind somebody and you're actually, your ass is going to jail for that. People are like,
Right.
oh, well, I don't want them to go to jail. I'm like, well, you better hope they use a jury notification because the moment they start showing those actual videos from every single point of view, that guy doesn't have a case. Which is why he tried to prejudice the jury by coming out with his actual PR statements before the actual case started. But
Right.
that gets brought up against him too, and he doesn't understand that. So the actual being a Marine that he thinks is going to protect him, being a Marine is actually going to hurt them a hell of a lot more.
Right. And I didn't mean to cause lumpy confusion in the conversation. Just in the chat, real quick, you guys. My grandma is Indians from Person County. Our family relocated. Our grandfather had 15 children, and when the Indian school said they were coming to pick these kids up, my grandpa and grandmother took their great grandma and grandpa, excuse me, took all their family and moved them to Robson County. So just clarifying that, like getting that clear. Like they took all them folks, all them babies to the new farm in Robinson County, in Cumberland County. So just clarifying for the record, I don't want no heat. I've got half of my family still there. Lumbee Indian folks get real ornery when you think they're black, even though historically Yes, heavily,
And most of my family is
heavily.
Choctaw Indians for actual Mississippi, and we didn't immigrate
Right,
here. We were always here the entire
right.
time.
That part, yeah. And when I show people, and people, oh man, I offend a lot of people, and I don't mean to, but I go, dude, I can trace. I'm not somebody like I don't know where I came from. The African American experience isn't that long in America. If you actually do the paperwork and dig for last names, and your parents weren't Rolling Stone baby makers, you can find your great grandparents' information. Like that's how we found the plantation and the ownership, and so much so that the half of the family that is descended from the plantation ownership, we have a private Facebook group because we don't want people judging us, right? And so if you see on the screen, these are the top 8. There's actually 10, but these are the top 8 American Indian names in America right now. This is Smith is number 1. Johnson, Begall, that's in Arizona mostly. Locklear is mostly in North Carolina. So you got 19,000 Locklears in one spot. Jones, come on, man. Right? Yazzie, that's also Arizona. Williams, 1.6 million, and Brown. And I just want to show that because I think so many people are like, well, you don't have a Native American name. And it's like, what are you hoping for? Running Water? Little Trail? Blue Creek? Like, no, the names are the names. Um, and that's a whole nother conversation. But I had one great ancestor that she married 6 different times. She married an Irish man, and then he died. And then she married a Dutch man, he died. She married an Indian, he died. And then she married a black man. And so it's like, trust me, America's history is unique and beautiful if you actually research it. Um,
But that's the
but
thing. They can't
mhm,
research it because they're trying to protect themselves from the outcomes of actual research while acting
mhm,
like they're part of the actual situation. So this is why I don't even worry about it. Like I know what the
yeah,
actual heritage is. Like
yeah,
grandfather, great grandfather, great great grandfather. I don't even worry about it. I'm like, look, this is the actual history. This is how things happen, and that's it. Asked my grandfather about it. He was like, look, this is what this is. Last name's really Wells, because that's who owned the property and the land and everything else. And actually, the thing wasn't even his father's name. It was
mhm,
actually somebody else's name,
mhm,
and he just kept the name because he wanted to be separate from the people who actually had my actual last name, like what it is now.
right, right,
Because he wanted to preserve that, or his great grandfather wanted to preserve that as an actual split in where these things were actually going. And this is why you could be from the same neighborhood and have the same last name, but the actual lineage doesn't even match up because he split off from that years ago, even though he probably does
right.
have most of the
Yeah,
kids'
we
DNA
we
in the entire city itself. So,
mhm. Wow, that's great. We have a family member who went off to pretend to be white in in New York, New Jersey, married a Jewish man, and then the second baby came out very dark, and then we moved him down to Philadelphia. He stayed with her majority of her life till he died, but eventually all her kids and everybody then decided, okay, we can't pretend to be just Jewish. We're black. You know what I mean? And so that family now
correct.
is in Delaware. They live well, but they always come back to North Carolina, right? They always, her husband, they thought her husband was going to run her off on a train or something. They're like, we don't want him to get murdered or nothing. So, all this conversation we're having, which is fun. Thank you for coming on. Essentially, uh, what are some things we can do, right, to make awareness or help black men? I know everybody say get younger. You got to work with the teenagers or the young people. But we have some we have men coming out of prison that and out of just situations. Um, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I was listening. I hate to do it, but BGS Igmore had a young man on, and he was like 25, and he was like, "I hate black women. I hate them. I wish we could get rid of them." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Are you divorced? Do you have a baby mama? Did something happen to you? Did someone assault you?" And it was none of those things, man. Tomorrow, he literally, no girlfriend, never had one, upset, worked a good job. I think he was like a warehouse worker or whatever. Um, but it's this angry and upset. How do we get some of these people? Because I'm scared this kind of person might go shoot up a mall or something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and they just
um,
might actually.
yeah. So how do we reach out and help more uh men? I'm just gonna say 15 to 27, right? I'm just going to do that. How do we help more of those men get into
I
blue
mean, you
collar
have
work,
to let them know
trades?
that. I mean, but what you have to do is let them know that the life isn't over. Life is just beginning for those people. Like most of the people that I went to high school with, like plus or minus 8 years, like there was an actual death that happened in our actual community from somebody that I was very close to that changed the Bloods, the Crips, the Vice Lords, and the gangsters within our city in town because everybody was cool with dude. Like the older individuals outside of that age range thought one thing about this guy. We thought another thing about this guy because we actually grew up with this dude and he wasn't really on that street stuff like everybody did. They did it because it was a coward ass move. So once people understand and know that, you're actually going to be taken care of once you come out. You're going to be fine. But these things actually happen when you have the actual pastors from the actual community go to the actual prisons and let these people know that you don't have to commit even more crime once your ass is locked up over some stupid shit. You actually going to be taken care of once you actually get out of here. Like a lot of these people give up right away because they don't think there's a place for them outside of that. I'm like, don't you understand that there's more of a place for you because you've been through that shit rather than you haven't been through that? They don't even know that. Like a friend of mine got locked up 27, 28 years ago when we was in 10th grade. This guy's out walking around. He was sentenced to a life sentence when he was 16 years old. That guy is out now because of COVID. He was given a life
That's insane.
sentence. Life sentence because he killed some Chinese or even Japanese actual corner store worker inside there on some Minister Society shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason
Mm-hmm.
why this guy is out of jail right now is because of COVID. Not that he had it, but he was just in there for
Because
such
he's
a long
old.
period of time.
He's
Yeah,
older. Yeah.
no, no, no. He's my age,
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
but he's never actually had to function outside of society since he was 15, 16 years old.
That's
Put it from
crazy.
that. And this person now has a great life, even though he did kill two people. This guy has a great life. Guy never
Okay.
sold drugs. He just did something incredibly stupid, incredibly young. But this person now sees that he has an entire life that is different than what it was back in the day
Mm-hmm.
because something happened and he got out and he kept his nose clean. He just did something incredibly messed up and stupid. But this person kept his nose clean the entire time, waiting for the actual chance and opportunity to do things straight and amazing. And then once we got to him, find out who he was, dealing with the actual state, he actually got out and all the kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. And it's like, dude had a better outcome. But this was the same guy after my father died,
Mm-hmm.
was able to let me in his house and all kind of other stuff, even though his family was had way money, but they lived in the actual community itself. So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of actually looped itself around 20 something years later that I showed him the level of gratitude that he showed me when I was a young dude.
Right.
And it's like there's people out here who's going through these type of things. They just want a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Once you show them early enough and they're not getting too trapped up in trying to keep the bad culture going, I think you can be able to work with these people overall. I
Gotcha.
think you can.
Well, I'm gonna try to close it out. The last question here is you're clearly in transportation. um, at this point in your life, you know, there were a lot of men on the internet like, hey, they're just bringing in all these foreigners to drive trucks, and because a lot of people don't understand in Latin America, like one of the number one jobs is transportation, and
Yes.
so is there still a place for black men in trucking as a career move? There was a lot of kerfuffle, right? We called it what, the grifters and the scammers selling
Yes.
trucking courses and all this stuff and kind of get rich quick. Um, but is there still a financial place, right,
Yes. Absolutely.
for black men in
Absolutely.
trucking?
Absolutely. But you have to do it as a kind of a union type situation. Russians do this. Albanians do this. So yes, the
Yes.
answer is yes.
I ran I leased on underneath some Ukrainians, and they definitely took me for 60,000. But they also, anytime the trucks would break, they're like, the truck is in Chicago getting
Yeah.
fixed. I would
Yeah.
call. Guy can't speak English. Hold on, let me get my daughter. Daughter gets on the phone. Okay, I'm talking to the daughter. My dad says it's $1,200. You're gonna pay cash or card. Like this kid doesn't even want to be there, right? And and I was like, every time the trucks mess up, y'all just take them. Y'all don't even take them to Lowe's. Y'all don't even take them to any of these stores. No, we have our
Nope.
people. We have
Yep.
our people.
Everywhere.
And so not only do they have, and so I tell, and I'm saying this respectfully as a woman, I tell most black men, if you can be a diesel mechanic, because we're short like 400,000 diesel mechanics, you'll be
Yep.
rich all your life. Like Ty City, as silly as he
All
is,
your
he's hilarious,
life.
and he's a diesel
All
mechanic.
your life. I mean, you can make $1,000, $2,000 a day just repairing tires if you're in with the right people. So this is what I mean, that you have to get away from people who don't want to do anything and get with people who do.
Hmm.
That's all it is. It is. Is there like once you understand how the industry works and actually how this thing actually works behind the scenes and with everyone else, you get in contact with actually all the actual repair shops and everyone else. Things go much smoother. You
Right.
have to be the number one person on the list for the freight liners, the actual
Hmm.
maps, everything else. Who you need to call for XYZ. Only thing you need is your card. All you have to do is get them a goddamn calendar. Okay?
Right.
Calendar has your name on it and
Yeah.
your face on it and everything else. People don't even know how far that even goes. Like 100 calendars given out to 100 people who are actually the people who repair stuff can actually do a lot for your business and you don't have to pay them.
Right.
Period.
I love it. I love
These
it.
these actual things are very easy to do. They're not really that hard. So,
Well, man, and tomorrow, tell everybody where they can find you on these internet streets so that
all
they
right,
can listen to some of your commentary.
all right. My actual channel is youtube.com/man tomorrow. You see my face here. Same face that is actually there. I work year round. I love what I actually do, and I would love to actually have people come through and actually challenge me on my actual points because I actually do want to change. If you have an actual circumstances you think I'm getting wrong, but at the end of the day, I put a lot of time and thought into what I think is actually right, and I actually do want to actually work with people who think that they have a better way of doing things. So thanks for having me on.
For sure, everybody. This is the. I think you can see it on the screen. Everybody, put a one in the comments if you can see it on the screen. This is Mana Tomorrow's channel. Enjoy the value of peace before you give it up for someone else's war. Again, he does talk about the gender war stuff. It cracks me up. I am a millennial, and I laugh because I see a lot of like 50, 60-year-old dudes talking about this stuff, and I'm like, are you dating? No, I'm done. Well, how's your children? Like all these stuff, and it's very interesting. The who's the speakers, who the leader is of the group. Now, I don't know. I don't know if I can rock with your later show talking bad about Donald Trump like that, but I might watch it.
Oh no, no, no! We're talking about the
Yeah,
actual
indictment.
because this is actual something that like you don't understand. What you do during your actual presidency is actually covered under not being able to be
Hmm.
prosecuted.
Yep.
What you do the moment you're actually out of office, you will be prosecuted for everything. Like
Except
this didn't
except for the
even need
Clintons.
to happen. Well,
And we're not talking about her because I like my life. I think the Clintons are great. Quotation marks. They're
yeah.
wonderful. They're the best thing happened to Arkansas.
I mean, do you want to come up missing? I mean, do you want me to come up
I'm Erica
missing? Oh,
Williams, and
okay.
I love Bill Clinton, and I love Hillary Clinton, and all the other
Boom.
shit.
There you go. That's the way to clean it up.
There you go. I want to live a long life.
But it's like people used to leave classified information on copiers, and they got
In
5 years.
garages.
Yes,
Our current president in garages.
but but he has to be not president anymore for him to be prosecuted for. Like I said, all this stuff that he's being prosecuted for is after he was president. He could have dodged all of this.
I mean, it's
All of
it's,
it
it's
could have been
getting
dodged.
close to Banana Republicish though. Like I'm gonna prosecute my
Oh,
enemy before
we've
you
been there a
know.
long time ago.
You
We've
know,
been
we
there a
we
long
we
time
went
ago.
Banana Republic here in our country quickly. Um, I mean, and I'm from North Carolina. Let's be very clear. We've had several North Carolina senators and governors like sent to jail, Democrats. And so for a while we started to go, oh, we're just going to vote Republican. Well, it's the same people. They just changed what D or R
Not
was,
to
right?
mention Illinois. Not to
Hmm.
mention Illinois. Every other
Oh yeah, lots of
administration they
Democrats
have
in Illinois.
people. Oh yeah, jail, like literal prison.
For
Out of
sure.
there. All right, well,
For
thank you
sure.
so much for having me on.
For sure. Thank you so much. You guys check out Man of Tomorrow on his channel. He also has a show tonight talking about Trump. Definitely check that out. I'll have his links in the description and in the first comment of the section. Thank you so much for coming on. I love it when we can talk clearly. There's no yelling. There's no craziness. You're more than welcome at the channel. And also, you have a book out. Is it out yet or no? The book, Man of Tomorrow. Did I lose you? I might have lost him, y'all. Okay, well, this was a great show. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating. You guys, this is your girl, Erica Williams from the Classic Clown blog. Have a wonderful evening.